I think it's an odd relationship, but definitely people do care for each other, and what's different is that people see each other every day. They go to the same places. They don't necessarily, they may or may not have phones. They probably don't have computers. They're connecting by seeing people every day, which is reflective in lots of places around the world, but not necessarily as common in urban centers. So that's where there's, I think, a care and a concern and a help, and also sometimes they'll steal from the person as well. It's some of it's, I'm sure some of it's reciprocal and some of it's not.
Whether the people, a lot of times I'm not sure that the people want to be helped. People who are kind of living like that, and they want to live like that for some reason, and
some people,
you know, they have to have somewhere to go, I suppose.
I don't think it's a choice for everybody, but some people do choose to go that way, but I don't think it's a choice for everybody.
So that combination, if you don't feel very good about yourself, you don't have any money, or you don't have very little money, and there's opportunities to maybe have a quick fix, that builds on itself, and that would be my guess. But I hope you interviewed, or you might have a chance to interview some of those people, because their stories are probably different than what I'm assuming.
Sometimes you don't have the choice, and sometimes you have the choice. And if you're sitting here, you should get a little more kindness instead of ignorance. Like if people just walk by full of shopping bags and not even speak when spoken to, that's pretty ignorant. But those that have lots to share should be obligated to share. Well, in Canada, it's a lot better than a lot of other countries, but there still could be more they could be doing. Like they waste a lot of money on police, elections, but yet so many people sit outside cold and hungry. There could be a little bit more that could be done, but at least in Canada we have practically a good system. A lot of it's got to do with the drug problem, but they give methadone clinics, you know. So if there's a drug problem, why are they giving free drugs, but they won't throw you 40 cents? They'll give you methadone if you're a drug addict, but they won't even speak to you when you approach them for 40 cents. So I don't know which would be better or worse.
A lot of our patients in their trial of being free of their addiction, they will use a long-acting morphine, which is called methadone. And this is a supervised medication that we prescribe to take them out of their addiction. And it has to be witnessed in a pharmacy. And they use their intelligence to sell it. So they will drink it, and they will drink a bottle of water before going into the pharmacy so they can make a big quantity of it. As soon as they come out, they will vomit it out by inserting their finger into their throat and then collecting it in a bag, and they will sell it by gram to other addicts who doesn't have money except minimal, so they can get more money and then buy their intravenous one, which is more powerful.
Well, my building has an underground garage where there's a set of recycling barrels, and everybody in the building puts their bottles for recycling in those barrels. And from time to time I got to know this binner, we call him, who would be picking through the barrels for bottles. And he learned the schedule so that he knew when our recycling was going to be picked up, so the maximum number of barrels would be there. He knew the schedule for all of the area people around in the neighborhood. And he worked like a dog. He would walk 7 or 8 or 10 miles a day to pick up bottles, and he would take them downtown for a refund. His name was Martin, and he became very sick. He was both an alcoholic and addicted to crack cocaine. So he had to pick up a lot of bottles to feed a crack habit. And one day he became very sick and he was hospitalized, and I haven't seen him since, so I don't know if he's alive or not. But he was the example of the kind of person who obviously was prepared to work hard and had certain skills and a good mind, but had wound up in a really bad place. On a Sunday, he was going to go home and he'd found half a bottle of rye and a copy of the New York Times. So he decided to call it a day, go home, curl up with the rye, and read the paper. So he was not a stupid person. When he had a moment, he liked to catch up on the news, and he was happy to have the New York Times.
But I hope that it's something that gets cleaned up and fixed before the Olympics. Because I think that the city is beautiful, and I think that that's one of the blemishes on the city. For civic pride and for the rest of the world to see, I think as Canadians we owe it to the rest of the world and to ourselves to clean that up.
With the Olympics coming up, there's like this big push to clean up the downtown east side, but nobody's really come up with any solutions as to how that's going to be done.
I bet you there'll be a band-aid put on that so that it'll be all nice and clean and look good for the world to see, but then what's going to happen? And this is what I'm dying to see.
We've invited the world to come here for the Olympics. And the decision to host the Olympics was not a bad one. But the decision to host the Olympics and allow this problem to continue is an indictment of our priorities. I mean, Canada has spending a lot of money to put troops in Afghanistan, and we suffer from a very serious heroin problem here. And since our troops have been in Afghanistan, attempting in part to eradicate heroin production, the amount of opium production has gone up to a world record level. So whatever we think we're doing in Afghanistan is not assisting our drug problem. I don't think the Olympics are a part of the problem. I don't think they're part of the solution.
When I see the drug addicts, it's a pretty sad state of affairs when you see someone who's shaking and running in front of buses, and the desperation is the hardest thing to see.
The way I look at it is, in this cage, the only way of leaving it is you will need a social support. It's not only about money. It's about try to find them a family that they can feel that they are living with. Most of them, they lack these things, and they feel that the only friend that they have are the drug dealers.
It saddens me and surprises me coming back to Vancouver and noticing how profound the problems that we have in such a otherwise wonderful place to live. And I think it's getting worse and has gotten worse over the past few years.
Well, it's a complete disgrace. Much poorer cities do a much better job. And you have to assess a society in many respects by the way it treats the most vulnerable and weak people among it. And the homeless in Vancouver are being treated with contempt and neglect. And it reflects very poorly on us as a society that is continuing. And that's why I think people are so frustrated that it hasn't been resolved. They know that it's really useless to continue blaming homeless people for this because the numbers are growing.
Drug addictions have forced users to prostitution, violence, and breaking into cars. Both the homeless and the people of Vancouver's rights are being violated by the drug problem. It's hard to say whose fault it is, and it doesn't really matter. Rather than blaming anyone for the problem, I think something more positive should be done.